Camley, I'm a state representative from Las Cruces and Mesilla here in New Mexico. It is February 19th, it's a Sunday, and this is your legislative update for the day. I've gotten a lot of emails and Facebook messages recently from teachers around the state worrying about possible education cuts. Apparently, the school boards from some of these places are starting to warn people that there might be cuts. So here's what I know about the situation. For the last 2 years, because of the drop in oil and gas prices, remember a lot of our state revenue depends on high oil and gas prices, both for direct taxes and for the jobs they create in Hobbs, Roswell, Carlsbad area and the Farmington area. When those prices go down, not only do we not get as much direct tax money in, but there's less people that are hired, and so therefore there's less jobs, they're paying less income tax, etc. This led to cuts all over the place, and in the special session last year, it actually led to cuts in education, mostly from school reserves. We didn't think that it led to straight up budget cuts for the state, but that's the situation we found ourselves in because of this huge fiscal crisis. So for this upcoming year, from what I understand, the House Democrats will be proposing a budget that not only stops the cuts, but increases funding a little bit, I think a little over 1%, for the school equalization guarantee. That's the amount of money that goes into classrooms. There are other cuts that are being proposed in government, including for the governor's what they call below-the-line cuts. So that's her discretionary funding. But we are trying very hard to get an increase in classroom funding this year, which would be a reversal of the last couple of years. Now, that's going to depend completely on whether or not we can get a revenue package in. Oil and gas prices haven't gone back up. We don't live in a land of unicorns and rainbows with gold at the end of them. Money doesn't grow on trees. So we are proposing to have an internet sales tax like a lot of other states are doing. And that's actually really good to do because it actually puts places like Amazon on an even footing with our local businesses, because right now Amazon can sell without having to submit taxes. So that's not fair to a lot of our local guys. We want to put a tax back on a lot of nonprofit hospitals, and if you look at some of these hospitals around the state, the nonprofits are actually really big corporations, and it's one of the biggest growing sectors of the state, so we want to kind of put a little bit of a tax back on that. We want to do a weight distance fee for trucks that travel through the state, and also increase our motor vehicle tax by 1%. Right now in New Mexico, when you buy a car, you only pay 3% in taxes. That is very low. So for instance, in Arizona, it's over 5%, in Texas, it's over 6%, in Denver, it's over 7%. So a 1% increase in that tax will actually bring in about $50 million, and all four of those together will bring in a little over $200 million, which will allow us to avoid further cuts this year and also build up our state reserves, which if we don't do, our state bond rating will drop. Remember, that's like our credit rating. And when we borrow money in the future, if we don't get our reserves up and that credit rating drops, it's going to cost you, the taxpayer, more money for things like roads, senior centers, libraries, school buildings, etc. So we got to get that done, though. And the legislature has to pass that, and the governor has to sign that revenue package for our budget to actually give a little bit of an increase in schools and stop the cuts. So there's two takeaways from all this, other than that's our direct situation. The first is trickle-down economics doesn't work, and we should have done those big tax cuts for the upper tax brackets in 2002 and 2003. That's one of the reasons we're in the situation we are today. It didn't really create any jobs, and it cut our revenue. The second is we have got to do a much better job of broadening our job base away from just oil and gas and the federal government. If we don't do that, our tax base remains low, and we continue to find ourselves in this situation year in and year out if oil and gas prices are low. So now you know what I know, and as always, if you have questions, comments, or concerns on these or any other issues, I'd love to hear from you, and I'll be back at you tomorrow. Hope everyone had a lovely weekend. Bye.